All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Conversations on Retail. My name is Matt Pfeiffer, and welcome to our second Ask Anything event in our brand new series. We launched it just a couple of weeks ago with an event focused on getting your money's worth from Walmart Luminate. And if you missed that, I'd encourage you to watch it. But we are so excited today to be joined by our friend Matthew Adam Smith, a longtime personal friend as well as friend of Conversations on Retail, to host a great panel discussion and live Q&A focusing on scaling your business on Walmart.com. We've got a lot of people registered, and I would expect those folks to be joining us over the next several minutes. But out of respect for those who have arrived on time, we're going to start on time. The most important thing I want to share, the reason that the first event was so successful is because we had so many questions from folks that were joining live. So if you have come with questions on any topic at all related to scaling your business on Walmart.com, I would encourage you to begin sending those now. And you can do that in two different ways. You can click on the chat button and you can submit your question, or you could click on the Q&A button. Now, you've got the ability to submit your questions anonymously if you prefer that your name not be used. So don't worry about us outing you necessarily. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to our friend Matthew Adam Smith. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Matt, for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Really thrilled to be here, guys, in a different capacity from the last time I was on with Matt Pfeiffer when I was at Walmart. I had the privilege of being there for nearly 5 years on the launch teams of both the Retail Media Network, Walmart Connect, as well as the third-party marketplace, Walmart Marketplace, where I also got to work pretty closely with Ryan. Dan and Jeremy are new friends of mine, but all three really just super qualified experts and all-around great guys. Which I think you'll be glad to have here because, it's been some months since I left the big house and we know things move really fast there. So truth be told, I think Ryan was always more of an expert at it than I was. But I think you guys are going to get a lot out of this. And just to reiterate what Matt Pfeiffer said, who is our man behind the curtain and will be funneling us questions if we miss anything. So please, don't be bashful. No question is too small or too big. This is all about you guys. And tapping into the huge brain trust that we have here with Ryan, Dan, and Jeremy. So we'd like to pass it to them quickly to just each give us a quick 30-second elevator on who you are and why you love this space, and then we'll open it up for questions. Can we start with you, Ryan?
Sure thing. Thank you, Matthew. Yes, my name is Ryan King. I am the CEO of BlueRyse. We are a full managed service agency for optimizing digital shelf for 1P suppliers and third-party marketplace sellers. Everything from PDP optimization to ad management, and we're happy to be here.
Awesome. Dan?
My name is Dan Llewellyn. I am with Cooley and delighted to be here. Super passionate about Walmart and just a long background connected to shopper marketing, e-commerce, omnichannel with Walmart and Walmart vendors.
Awesome. Welcome, Dan. And Jeremy.
Yeah, Jeremy Howlett with Fusion Retail Group. I oversee growth and digital strategies for the team. I come from a long background of omnichannel experience with primarily in the running shoe space as a founder of a running shoe brand, and then taking that to a bunch of other brands in the various agency space, and now with Fusion. So I love the e-commerce space. I love what it brings to the table, and I love how Walmart has leaned into it a lot especially over the last 2 years. But it's exciting. It's exciting to see what's going on and try to compete with Amazon and Shopify and these other players. So,
for sure. Thanks for coming. Thank you all three for joining us. And I love that we have a good, sort of mix, right, of expertise here, and folks who've had different expertises with Walmart. And you guys might not know it, but the fearless leader of Conversations on Retail, Matt Pfeiffer, also spent a good stretch with Walmart back in the day in stores and international. So he comes by this topic honestly. I do want to kick off just to sort of orient guys. I'm sure many folks, whether you're a seller or an enthusiast or maybe even internal, probably heard, if not just the headlines, maybe even going deep on the Q1 earnings report. I think the momentum at Walmart just continues unabated with a 6% increase in revenue year over year just for Q1. They beat the guidance on earnings. They were great on operating income, but I think specific to this group, e-com sales continue to be a huge contributor. E-com was up 21% year over year. If you think I'm reading from a list, you are correct, but want to make sure we get it right. And specifically digital up 22% in Q1. So very big gust of wind in the sales, particularly for marketplace sellers. We saw that the marketplace has increased to now have over 100,000 active sellers, which is more than double where they were last year. I think I can tell you it's still a small fraction of those that are on Amazon, which of course is a great opportunity for getting in early, getting command of rankings, and really kind of staking your claim there, like so many Amazon sellers did, many years ago. Great thing happening with the revenue from sellers and the assortments. I think about a 420 million plus items available on Marketplace now. And WFS, their fulfillment program, also saw an average increase of 50% increase in sales if you use that program. And I think we'll probably get pretty deep into that. We did a little bit of research going into this, and I don't want to bias your questions, but some of the key areas where we continue to see the need for help among sellers, and just if this helps get your gears spinning, we're able to tackle everything from how to optimize your product listings, how do you maintain that competitive pricing or map pricing to ensure you're getting support from the algorithm and maybe from the category teams, and just better positioned to win the buy box. How do you deal with unauthorized or counterfeit products? If you're a brand owner, how do you protect your brand, right? Through Seller Center. How can you be using the programs like WFS? How can you be using advertising and marketing through WMC and maybe even your external spends? Certainly data analysis and reporting is a big area. And then, there are just overall best practices for, being a good seller with customer service, minimizing returns, and then just navigating Walmart's, large and growing sort of list of policies that you have to be following to be compliant. So there's a lot more in that, and there's a lot more other than that. And I want to make sure that we can get all those questions. So with that, I know we saw a raised hand, but the first one I see in the chat is from Katie. And Katie is asking, what metrics are used to measure success at shelf? And maybe we tackle this from digital shelf. And then I know we have some store expertise as well here, we can also dip in because I think we can talk about marketplace, but we also have some expertise in 1P in store as well. So which one of you guys would like to tackle Katie's question? I see Ryan nodding. I'm going to call on Ryan.
Yeah, I'll tackle some of it, Jeremy, and Dan, feel free to hop in here too. Yeah, I think sorry, my camera keeps, we'll take the zoomed out approach first. How about that for a little visual cue there? On the digital shelf, overall, there's some basic metrics you're looking at for performance on the digital shelf, and then there's some other elements as you do a deeper dive. At the general basic level, the metrics of what does success look like on the shelf is with PDP optimization is what Walmart's going to give you as a listing quality score. That's a score of 0 to 100 that's taking into account everything from, if you're on third-party marketplace, it includes imagery, copy, back-end attributes, review count and review rating, as well as speed of delivery and relative offer competitiveness. And so all those averaged together give you and feed the algorithm a score of 0 to 100%. Benchmarks for general success would be 80% or higher is generally good on the marketplace. If you want to be best in class, and especially when you're talking to merchants or others as well, then some of the key metrics we're looking at is 95% or higher on those listing quality scores, as well as maybe an average of 10 or reviews or higher, at least at a 4.5 rating or higher. I think we could get into this in speed of delivery in WFS, but one of the other best-in-class elements with that metric would be trying to get delivery speed within 2 days, if you can. That used to be a competitive advantage. Now it's really more table stakes if you really want to be competitive in that regard.
That's great. Guys, want to chime in?
I think I'd build on that a little bit, right? Like if we're talking success at shelf digitally, right? Like we're looking at what's our return on what we're putting into it, right? Like how profitable, like look at bottom line profitability. The nice thing about metrics online is I can see it in real time. So like in the Amazon world, we talk about ACoS and tacos, right? Like our advertising cost of spend and our total advertising cost of spend. So we're looking at both what we're spending to make and what we're getting organically. And so looking at like success at shelf digitally, well, are you spending ad dollars on Walmart Marketplace, right? Like that's a big thing to look at. And how effective are those ad dollars? Are they driving up? Are they driving my ranking up higher? Are they driving revenue? Those are the kind of things that I'm looking for primarily, right? Like, because if I'm 10th page, I'm not going to be found, right? But if I start spending money and I get that flywheel going, then I can start to see my product move up the listing. Listing optimization is key to what Ryan talked about and being found, right? Being found in the filters and all of those things. But at the end of the day, success at shelf is what we sell, right? And how profitably we sell it. If I'm spending $1 to make 50 cents, I'm not having a lot of success at shelf. But if that's moving my ranking up higher, then that could equate to better success in the long run. And so those are the things that I have to kind of measure with where am I at today? What are my goals? And then how am I getting to those? Because again, at Walmart Marketplace it's an ad platform just like Amazon is and any of these other players, right? So it's ad supported and I've got to lean into that as efficiently and effectively, but I definitely have to lean in.
Yeah. I might piggyback on that, and then Dan, would love you to layer on as well. When we launched Walmart Connect, I think we had a certain level of capability, and that's certainly been, increasing. But I know from, being out in that Amazon seller ecosystem at places like Prosper and, other places where I did get to meet Ryan, we've definitely seen the need to advertise on Amazon become almost compulsory, right? In terms of the amount of competition and the saturation, right? And just to stand out, right? And your ability to sort of get higher in the search rankings. I know a lot of Amazon sellers who are, seeing bids on those paid search products that PPC spends kind of spike pretty quickly, right? And so you need to invest more and sooner than you might see. So to bring it back to Walmart, I think one of the advantages is, of course, less competition. They liberated the search grid a while ago to make it possible for, different and more products and sellers to, get in those rankings and win the buy box. And then, of course, you're typically not seeing those bids get driven up as quickly, right? Just to sort of win that. So think, good on Walmart for maintaining that, and great that PPC, tactic is still widely useful. Dan, do you have anything to add to this topic?
Yeah, sure. Just taking, Ryan, some of your thoughts and impacting things like search rank. I agree. If there's really three ways to get it, your buyer, you're doing it organically, or you're paying for it through the media. Your PDP score has the opportunity to be able to take in organically impact search rank. One of the key pieces of the algorithm on Walmart is the ratings and reviews. When you get it right, when you have photos attached, where possible with your reviews, you definitely impact search rank. And there's so much at stake with the PDP at the digital shelf of impacting search rank, of what you do, the refreshing of the content that comes up on the page. On page one, the top 10 search results equal 70% of all category sales. When you look at the top 5 search results on page one, typically they are about 80% of all category sales. So if you're in marketplace or you're an enterprise brand, you have to be able to take and show up in search. What's interesting is about 6 in 10 shoppers now are more likely to discover new products when they're online. And where are they going? They're going to Amazon to look, Walmart to look as the starting place. And so if you're not showing up in search and your PDP isn't in order, you've lost the opportunity to influence the purchase.
great feedback all around. And if you guys have more on that, just drop it in the chat, and we will come back around to it. Advertising is a huge part of this, and listing quality is where the sale happens, where it doesn't, right? We have another question from Terry, and Terry, your question is, how does Walmart manage MAP pricing? And for our audience, MAP is minimum or minimally advertised price, which is essentially the lowest you can go. And I can say, coming from Walmart, Walmart expects you to go as low as you possibly can. Maybe one of the three of you guys want to tackle that, and then the rest of you can chime in.
I think I'll lead it off, right? Like whenever you're playing online, MAP is a big deal, right? Like it's because a lot of these companies will break MAP really fast. Amazon and Walmart like to compete with each other. And so you have to make sure that both you're controlling your resellers on these platforms, as well as just controlling your own pricing strategy. Because if Amazon breaks MAP, Walmart's going to follow suit and vice versa, right? So if you don't have a strong MAP policy, you need to put one into play, and then you need to enforce it with any other retailers and resellers, especially online retailers. Because if Amazon sees it on another retailer's website, they'll drop price really quick, and so will Walmart. And so yeah, it can become a vicious cycle. So you've got to have that policy, and then you've got to manage it really strong.
Yeah, I'll say on that. I think the distinctions of if it's who is violating or in danger of violating MAP. Is it if you're a 1P supplier? Is it on the merchant side and that negotiation of what that price is? If it's in the Amazon side, is it the vendor manager or somebody on that side and how they're controlling pricing? Those are the questions we're looking at. And then secondarily, there are all the third-party sellers. So for brands, and this is a major issue for as Jeremy has talked about, with it backs up to the distribution channels and your agreements there and what those policies are. And that, if your question is, will Walmart be involved in other third-party sellers coming on, drop shippers, whoever it is, violating MAP for your brand? Walmart's going to take a open hand stance on that as a non-competitive marketplace, in that way, an open marketplace that people are allowed to sell if they have that supply. So it's going to be back to the seller, the supplier, to come up with other strategies for managing MAP violations. And that's going to happen internally through your own processes, typically.
Before Dan chimes in, I do want to just double click and just stress what Ryan said, and just one of the fundamental differences between being a third-party marketplace seller and maybe some of you who might have a first-party regular retail relationship with Walmart, right, is pricing is one of the biggest ones, right? Pricing and assortment, of course, because you get to decide what you're bringing, and you get to decide how it's priced, provided the products are compliant. So yeah. Bold that one, right? Which is nobody's telling you how to price it, right? It's kind of on you to use the analytics and tools to make sure you're being as competitive as you possibly can. If you're working with a category team on the marketplace team, they're going to be, giving you insights and maybe pushing you, to meet MAP. But yeah, different than 1P where you're, negotiating on terms and retailer is making demands of you. Maybe just before we move over to Dan. Can any of the three of you talk, or Dan, maybe this is what you wanted to talk about, but the increasing use of tools and maybe automated tools that marketplaces have, or that Walmart Marketplace has, to help with pricing? I'm thinking back to Repricer, when they launched that, but there could be more that have launched since I left.
I'll hit it in sort of a different angle.
Sure.
The top three reasons that shoppers consult a retailer, PDP, Walmart's before shopping is confidence, social validity, and certainty. So 58% of shoppers research deals and prices before they actually purchase. That's why we got to get it right, especially now since discretionary spending is pulling back from a shopper perspective. They're coming and they're either starting on Amazon, at Walmart, and it's that price value trade-off that is there. So when you look at almost 60% of shoppers are researching deals, they want the confidence that they're getting the value price trade-off. Second thing is just not the pricing of it. shoulder to shoulder with checking product reviews. 51% when they come during the path to purchase are checking product reviews, and 42% of them are checking in-stock status when it's there. So that hub all around pricing with Walmart's value equation and the price value trade-off, it's just critical from a shopper perspective to get it right.
Well said. Ryan or Jeremy, any specifics on Repricer in your experience? Is it working?
I don't have experience with Repricer, and the maybe the point I'll make is because in the case of a lot of brands we work with, if they're third-party marketplace, they are, or even a lot of the 1P suppliers we work with, when they open up on the third-party marketplace, the challenge is, it is being alluded to in some of these other questions too, that price parity issue with multiple marketplaces. The challenge of dynamic repricing on any one marketplace is maintaining parity with other marketplaces. And so the hesitation for many brands on using an automated repricer on one marketplace alone is that it potentially, the scenario would be if you're doing a dynamic repricer on Walmart, the question becomes, to what degree can it drop before there's a potential buy box suppression on Amazon? And the nature of marketplace development at this time for third-party marketplace sellers is that Amazon, for a lot of brands, is still their primary channel if they've been around for a while. And so the opportunity cost of implementing a repricer on Walmart's side alone is just too much to bear at this point. So a lot of the use case examples or opportunities maybe are not there yet. What I'm looking for and interested in are there dynamic repricers that span multiple marketplaces at once to maintain parity, if there's no other controls that come in place when it comes to that issue.
Yeah. Terry, you have a follow-up on your question before, but sticking here on pricing, Terry has questions about basically how do you work with the algorithm, and right, I think I'm paraphrasing, but how do you make sure it doesn't just become this race to the bottom where you lower price, and then Terry's asking, does Walmart then go and lower the price even further, right? And so I think one question is, do you risk getting into a battle with Walmart? So is the Walmart marketplace team, or is even the 1P team, the 1P merchants, are they actually looking to beat price, from third-party marketplace sellers? So that's one thing I'd love you guys' your take on. And then number two, I can just answer, there's a question Terry says from, is Amazon the lead for price matching? I would say the lead, probably yes, because of what our panelists have said here, and the reality that a lot of these sellers, most of their sales are coming through Amazon. And so they certainly can't risk undercutting their own price on Amazon. But also in some cases, there can be, punitive, punishment, and to use this wrong word, from, Amazon if they were able to detect that. But I will say, in terms of the repricer that we developed while I was at Walmart Marketplace, no, Amazon's not the only price being looked at. They're definitely looking at, eBay and Target, and I think an expanded list of .coms, right? But I think looking at Amazon obviously tends to be kind of the best example, because all of those other non-Amazon, marketplaces are also looking at Amazon, and sellers tend to have the lowest price on Amazon, and Walmart wants them to at least match that, right? But does anybody want to address the question about this sort of like race to the bottom and back and forth, and are we seeing an incident of that?
Yeah. I kind of hit on two things with that, right? Like, one is like price strategy is always like the challenge within business, right? Like selling a product, you always are gonna deal with this. What price strategy do I play with? Do I go compete with my competitors? Do I try to race to the bottom, right? Like, but at the end of the day, like, you've got to be profitable. And so if you're always racing to the bottom and you're trying to be the best price, like, okay, what is that going to do to your overall profitability? Amazon kind of introduced this 25 years ago, right? Like, where they were taking really slim margins and just trying to sell a lot of stuff. And that continues to be the case to some degree. If that works for your business, great. Most businesses that I work with, that doesn't work for them. And so it's leading into a correct pricing strategy based on your branding and based on where your brand positioning is. And I would try to avoid price competition, especially amongst yourself primarily, right? Like, Set a price, be comfortable with that price, and then stick to that price until it becomes a closeout product or you're releasing a new version or something along those lines. But the second thing, and the thing to be aware of when you're talking price, is both a price and a value play is winning the buy box, right? Like being able to control that buy box, whether it's on Walmart or on Amazon. They don't just, because the biggest penalty you're going to receive by being off is losing that buy box. And if you lose that buy box, you lose a lot of revenue. I've got a prospect that we're talking to right now that they've lost their buy box on Amazon, and they've definitely seen a hit to their revenue. And so that's one of the things, like, okay, let's come in and clean that up, right? But there's more that goes into the buy box than just price. Your shipping strategy plays a big part in that too. And so if you can expedite your shipping, if you can bring it down to free shipping, if you can do some of those things to be able to maintain the same price level but give a little more value in some of the other areas, you can get that price, that buy box back. And then also just be careful who you're selling product to, because they can steal the buy box from you, and you don't want that to happen. So
Great thought. And just to translate that for some of our newbies, maybe, the buy box, of course, winning that means the algorithm has decided you're the best match, right? In terms of the offer you're bringing on the product, so you auto populate there. And for sell, we've all had that experience of there's maybe other offers there from other sellers, but customer has to sort of manually, right, select a different seller. So yeah, you want to be that automatic decision, which of course is a function of PDP quality. So to another question we have here, guys, what are the most, we've talked about a lot of it, but are there certain mistakes that you see as the most common mistakes sellers make with regard to their PDPs? Dan, you want to start, or Jeremy? Yeah.
Well, I think two things that I see. One is they don't focus enough on the back end information. So they just put in the front end, and they don't fill in all of the boxes, which that back end information can be critical for you getting found in the right filters through search and so forth. And so I think that's one big problem. And then two is like setting up your store pages and sorry, Amazon called it brand registry, but making sure that you protect your IP through a Walmart's just intellectual product, their brand portal. So making sure that you set up on brand portal. And I think, like Jenny asked the question, the need for 1P suppliers to set up marketplace accounts, and I would push that. Yeah, if you don't have a brand portal set up, like I think you need to look at leaning into that, because that helps tell a better brand story and do some of those things. And from what I know, 1P, they typically aren't setting up your brand portal for you. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody else here on the portal, but I don't think that's the case.
And you guys can correct me, but when I left, we weren't even requiring folks to have third-party marketplace seller accounts to register your brand in the brand portal, right? So is that still, Brian's nodding, are we still there?
There are ways now for brand portal as IP protection, and for sponsored brand video or sponsored brand, all those elements. There is a pathway for 1P suppliers through Retail Link to set up and apply to brand portal on the 1P side now. But yeah, historically as 3P marketplace for brand portal, there are ways to action on both ends, which comes down to someone else talked about how do you deal with multiple listings, bad actors. That's part of brand portal, but this other element that I think Jeremy's referring to as well is the brand shop and brand shelves, which is a new element of telling that brand story. It's those are historically would commit of probably over 100,000 with Walmart Connect to build out a brand store was kind of the one avenue to do that in some ways, or rich media on the PDP. Which is hosted and syndicated up through a connected content partner. But now the new feature out there are brand shelves and brand shop, which are available for brand registered brands, and it's self-serve and free. And so that's a big new one to take advantage of for brands to whether 3P or 1P to set those up and tell that story.
Yeah, and of course the fundamental use case for being registered in brand portal, right, is of course brand protection means a couple of things. One is, anyone who's maybe a reseller, right, that's making product claims or, using incorrect language, right, in the PDP, incorrect ingredients, outdated or wrong imagery. You're able to basically stipulate, things like that, and make sure that the imagery that anybody is using, is accurate. I would say it tends to be an area where, first party suppliers who just don't want anyone else selling their product, might go to appeal and try to get a seller kicked off. The position of Walmart Marketplace when I was there was, similar to the fact that we would not, an authorized good actor, right? That's following policies. We're not going to pick a winner and basically say, that only the 1P supplier can sell it. So just caution that I don't look to the brand portal, to be what you think is your silver bullet to kicking off all the third-party sellers of your product. You want to look actually within your organization and figure out, where this inventory is making its way into the market. Dan, do you want to add anything on this or just more generally to PDP challenges you're seeing? And then we've got a lot more questions that have come in, so we'll keep it moving.
One quick snapshot. From a shopper perspective, 7 in 10 shoppers are more likely to buy a product because of the online content in the ratings and reviews than in-store signage and displays. You got to get the ratings and reviews right. That is critical in the path to purchase, even in food and beverage categories, definitely in the larger side or the perimeter of the box with durable goods inside of Walmart. But getting the ratings and reviews right and up on the page and really understanding what the impact is on sales lift and conversion is critical to understand. And I see that most brands, they want to meet just the basic numbers, but optimizing number of reviews, feedback from within the industry, 30% increase when there's 50 or more reviews up on a page of online conversion. So you got to get it right because that's where the shopper is at. They're looking at it, and it's a combination of the content that's up on the page and the ratings and reviews, and they're going to make that decision. Do I buy it or no?
And to hang on reviews for a second, is there anything Walmart's doing to help sellers with reviews? And I know this is a sensitive topic because we got to make sure reviews are legitimate, right? And we can't have a bunch of bots spitting reviews out to try to game the algorithm. So anything you guys are seeing as a best practice for reviews or actual tools that Walmart is providing to help sellers with reviews?
I'll share a couple real quick. So Walmart does have the Spark Reviewer program in cooperation with Bazaar Voice for sampling out and getting reviews. So it's incentivized review. For those who are familiar with the Amazon platform, the word incentivized combined with the word review is just something people don't even speak of anymore. Obviously, that came from a lot of bad actors, those things. But in the Walmart world, incentivized reviews is not a bad word. There are plenty of partner teams. I can think of several off the top of my head, whether it's Bazaar Voice, Field Agent, quite a few more out there, and members on this panel, I'm sure, are connected with as well. Their programs for whether it's sample out and leave a review. So if you're pre-launch in store or somewhere else and you need to have the optimized listing prior, that's one of the ways. Ongoing campaigns for purchase online or purchase in store, leave a review are also available. Walmart will send out emails to purchasers to review without a seller or supplier having to initiate that request. And then there's another one that's lesser known. I can put a link here in comments, but bulk syndication of reviews from D2C websites. So there's groups like Yotpo and many others out there, Bazaar Voice and others, that'll syndicate on and you can contract with them. But Walmart will also ingest reviews free of charge for third-party marketplace sellers if they have reviews on their sites. And if you qualify as a brand and you attest to various qualifiers saying these are legitimate, these are moderated, all these things, that the team can actually ingest those. What we've heard lately is they're taking requests that you can imagine. There's a lot of demand for this. And so the team is saying if you have over 1,000 reviews for your products, that's who they're prioritizing right now at this season. But there's a way to apply, and then it's a CSV upload via their template of those reviews. They'll review and then put those on.
That's awesome. I want to go back quickly to 1P and 3P, and I might just give a little, quick answer and then open it up to you guys. But the question from Jenny, was about kind of the use case for existing 1P suppliers to also open up a third-party marketplace account, right? And I think this earlier we talked about the brand portal, and I think we've established you don't have to do that just to get access to the brand portal, right? You can now do that as a 1P supplier. But yeah, we could talk about like the kind of the business reason, right, for wanting to maintain both 1P and 3P relationship with Walmart. I know when I was at Walmart Marketplace working on seller acquisition, there's always the case where if a 1P retailer, a 1P supplier is you're working in a line review, a mod planning cycle with Walmart. It's rare that if you have more than, let's say, 50 SKUs, does everything get taken into the house, right? And so there's an immediate opportunity for you to bring anything that you didn't come to a deal with the merchants directly onto the platform, right, as 3P, so that we just call that assortment expansion, and that's different from. And then I see Jeremy, I want to let you in here, but the other question, which was about if you do 1P and 3P on the same SKU, on the same item, right? How do you actually manage having both if you're the brand owner and Walmart has a 1P offer on the item where you have a 3P seller offer on the very same item? How do you work that? So Jeremy, you want to kick off, and anybody else chime in, just this whole sort of idea of managing 1P and 3P together?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on because Walmart's not usually going to bring in your whole expansion, or maybe you're going to release a product before Walmart's going to put it on shelf, bring it in as a 1P seller. You might want to test a product. And so having a 3P relationship through Marketplace can be a powerful avenue to have alternate products that they don't have as a 1P, or that you want to test or bring in a new flavor or something along those lines. It becomes a great place to play because you've already got a brand presence there, and then you can release that new product and kind of piggyback off of what you're currently already selling on Walmart.com.
Yep. And how about just a way of working to manage you having a third-party offer of your own on an item where Walmart also has a first-party offer that you've already negotiated with them to deliver? Like, how do you do that in practice?
I'm gonna have to defer to either Ryan or Dan on that one. So,
sure, Dan, feel free if you.
I don't have anything to add right now.
All right, I'll share a little bit. What we see is some of it with regard to pricing. It becomes a little bit of a moot point in strategy as far as if you're worried about pricing against a product that's in store as a 1P supplier, and you also put a product in third-party marketplace. Walmart's going to have the Walmart 1P listing is going to be a lower price per unit, most likely because it's going to be either pick up in store. It's going to be an OPD option or delivery from store. And so the unit pricing is going to be smaller. As a 3P seller, you're having to integrate into that the referral fees of using Walmart's marketplace, as well as delivery fee, those things of making those costs of whether or not you're using WFS or fulfilled as the seller yourself, and other using a different 3PL. Your retail price is going to be higher, most likely, on the 3P seller side. So you can list. And we see this strategy for 1P suppliers that may have limited distribution in store. Maybe they've been brought into 800 stores nationwide, but they want to drive traffic from a broader marketplace offsite, and they want to make sure they're visible and showing up for conversion for those ad campaigns. They may set up on the third-party marketplace a multi-pack where the unit economics make sense, but at a price point that's similar, added as a variation to that listing. And then drive offsite traffic where you will be active and discovered, even if they're in a zip code that is not related to a store in proximity that's carrying that inventory. So that's one way that it can be advantageous, as well as just bringing your broader assortment. So they don't have to be independent listings. They can be merged in as variations as well. We have not seen really scenarios where you're truly competing at the price point with your merchant. These are great things to bring up with a merchant as a 1P supplier and discuss and negotiate on, and it at least inform, because it's showing you're being proactive as a supplier partner as you're looking to drive traffic and test that assortment.
Ryan, quick follow-up. What about having a backup for inventory purposes? Like if 1P goes out of stock, is that
absolutely
a strategy or no?
Absolutely. To have that, whether you're going to front load it all in as a WFS, so 2-day shipping and all those extra advantages, there's maybe the trade-off where they're not, maybe a seller or supplier is not ready to commit a bunch of inventory to the WFS warehousing system, but at least they have a 3PL backup, and so they can sign up for fulfilled by seller and have the inventory manually input in there so they have a backup in case it drops and can monitor for those purchases. That can be a great backup strategy.
Awesome.
Hypothetically on that too, Ryan, couldn't you have a tertiary as well, right? Like, so if you're 1P, and then you have that WFS backup, and then you can have a fulfilled by seller backup to that, right? So
Absolutely.
during holiday or something like that, you could have all three of those at play to where if one goes out of stock, the other one fills in, and then if that one goes out, then you've got your 3PL or your direct warehouse that can fulfill any of those on fulfilled by seller.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's an important note on the 3P side that operates at least historically different than Amazon. This offer, it automatically switches on your listing back to seller fulfilled once you run out of WFS inventory. So that is a great fallback to a third level even there.
I feel like Jeremy's playing three-dimensional chess here. Like, what happens when we add four? I don't even know what 4P is, but I feel like it's coming. Want to keep plowing through here, guys. Lots of great questions. Please keep them coming. We will get to them. Lucas asks, this is about expiration dates and how does Walmart deal with transparency on expiration date in real time on the e-commerce platform?
I'll share from experience some occasions where we see that they're seeing it. It'll happen if you're in WFS. They'll be scanning those at inbound, and they have certain thresholds of what they expect that assortment to be prior to the expiration date. And so one control point will be based on when you inbound that inventory, and they're going to double check that for expiration date, and they will refuse those shipments if they fall within the period that if they fall outside of the period they've allocated for that. So you'll need to just look at the WFS policies on what those expiration date windows are. As far as real-time enforcement, that comes really from seller feedback or shopper feedback. Those are one of the elements that are going to be tracked, and you'll be notified as a seller pretty quickly if that's a issue that's recurring, and you have to investigate. One thing to watch out for if you do get that notification may be a third party. So tracking, making sure you can attach that purchase back to an order number or purchase number so that you can verify first, did it come from your inventory and through your account, rather than a drop shipper momentarily jumping onto a listing and selling something that was out of date somehow. But those are some ways that you'll expect to see it as close to real time as possible. I don't know if we can get more real time than that.
Got it. Quickly, and maybe Dan, you want to grab this one. This is back to brand protection. Question, this is anonymous. Does being the brand owner, and I assume that means being the registered brand owner in the brand portal, have any weight on maintaining the buy box, or is that not enough to compete with 3P? Maybe the question is the brand owner who is maybe 1P, right, but not on 3P and doesn't have a 3P offer, in any better position in terms of buy box, versus a third-party seller that comes in? Does being the brand owner give you a leg up or no?
You know what? That particular area with the buy box isn't my sweet spot. So I'm gonna flip it to Jeremy and Ryan.
Jeremy, what have you seen?
Historically, it typically does. Like, it does if you're filling in all of the information, right? Like, and you're meeting the PDP and you're on brand registry. I keep calling it brand registry, but brand portal. Like, yeah, you should get preference there. The other reseller, like, it depends. Like, but you can usually, like, if you don't know who it is, then you can go to work to kind of find out and get them kicked off sometimes, which can then help you control the buy box. So, but you got to check all the boxes, right? And you got to show that you are the brand and go through all of that. And if you do, then typically you're going to get the protections that you need as the brand to be able to own that and control that.
Specific to buy box, though, Brian, in your experience, have you seen brand owners getting a leg up on winning the buy box? Does it help their, their listed quality score, or in any way, help them with the algorithm?
From an algorithm, I haven't seen evidence that its brand owner is causation for holding the buy box. I see correlation, and I think the secondary reasons would be typically the brand owner is going to have the lowest price point because it's not going to be a resell scenario. Price and speed of delivery are going to be your two biggest drivers. The brand ownership, as Jeremy was talking about, does give you higher rankings on content score, on content, what you're able to manipulate or change and update on the listing itself. And so that's certainly there and recognized in there, but I would say that the bigger drivers are going to be price and speed of delivery. In the case that someone hops on and beats you in the buy box, you could do a quick hack check is trying to fill the cart with as many units as you can to see if they have over 12 or whatever their max is. And if they're under that and they're wanting to get them out of the way, just purchase the stock and see where it's coming from and just get it out of the way to resume owning the buy box. But otherwise, it might be a leaky distribution point and trying to climb up the chain that way.
I love the hacks. We'll keep it coming. Sticking on brand urgency just quickly. This is super tactical, but question from Chris. We're a 1P and 3P seller. Our brand is registered in the brand portal. How do we see that connectivity, right, between the Seller Center accounts? Like, does that show up that they are the registered brand in Seller Center? I think that's the question. Super tactical, I know.
I don't know if there's a point to see if you are the registered brand owner within Seller Center. That would be a brand portal, accessing the brand portal and seeing if you're the actually recorded as the seller on record or if you're the registered agent of that brand owner through brand portal.
Got it. Cool. Thank you guys for questions. We're going to keep plowing through. So this one's anonymous. It's about ratings. We see ratings no longer on the digital shelf for categories like chicken and ice cream, except for sponsored search. Will Walmart bring those back, or what is the reasoning behind that? If they don't come back, how can we gain competitive edge outside of sponsored search on the digital shelf? Anybody want to grab that?
I'll grab it real quick. Can't tell you whether Walmart will bring it back or not, but optimize the content up on the product page. You have the opportunity to be able to take and bring the voice of the Walmart shopper up on the product page. What do I mean by that? Instead of just stock images, integrate in literally the voice, the face of the shopper. Anybody can place, any brand can take and place videos within their carousel up on the page. You have latitude with the video instead of just talking about it from a brand perspective. Get the voice of the shopper. Let the shopper, both in the ice cream category and the chicken category, talk about with their content, the video content up on the page. Let them talk. I'll give you an example. In the chicken category, chicken is hardly ever separated from a meal solution. And why not put up on the meal solution and have a Walmart shopper a working mom talk about how she can get dinner on in 20 minutes or less, and talk about the chicken and the recipe that came with it. So Walmart Mom Hero, and literally put that content right up on the PDP. So it's not like it is totally empty up there. You need to get and dynamically treat the PDP that it's your way to let the shopper tell your story versus just brand centric or category centric, like an ice cream, etc. Let the shopper tell your story up on the PDP.
Absolutely. Like, lean into user generated content, right? Like, control that narrative with great fans of your product and lean into that user generated content. Every marketing and sales strategy that you use today should involve user generated content, right? Like, it should live on your website, it should live on your Amazon, it should live on your Walmart.com, right? Like, lean into that as much as you can. The other thing that I would add is, like, just make sure that you're abiding by all of the right, like, abide by your right style guide, Um, I'll post a link to that in the chat. But Walmart has their style guides out for their different product lines, and so make sure that your PDP is following all of the style guidelines for Walmart.com, and that's going to help your PDP immensely.
Uh,
So
I have another one just to follow on what Jeremy said. We know that the Walmart core shopper is definitely on the channel. Get out of the status quo box and link in store at shelf back to be able to take and tell your story. It's really easy, right? You can put a UPC code that can take and open up to a video review right from the shelf, and to be able to take and do it. So don't feel trapped that the text reviews aren't there. Link what you can in store at point of purchase. You look at the percentage of shoppers now, and especially the Walmart shopper, that while they are in store, they're looking online. They're looking at the PDF. Link the two, right? Link it. And if you don't have the text reviews up on the site, once again, just use at point of sale, use in store to be able to take and let the shopper tell your story.
Awesome, guys. Going back to this notion of like 1P, right? And so I'm going to merge a couple of questions here, right? But essentially, we've talked about how do you increase your what Amazon would call LQS or Walmart listing quality score. How does a 1P supplier impact their rankings in the search? And basically, or in the same way in Seller Center, a third-party seller is going to see recommendations, right, from the system about areas they need to improve, whether it's pricing or shipping promise or other sort of factors that are driving, right, the score. I guess how much visibility do you get now, right, on what's driving your score, and then particularly for 1P, what's your ability to impact that score, versus how it happens for 3P? Thanks for the question. You want to grab
It's a great question. Yeah, I think so. The 1P suppliers have a visibility to those scores through Item 360 or Supplier One. Supplier One has been more of the recent rollout, which it's basically over the top, the same, reproducing all the capabilities you're seeing in Item 360 or something else that you're going to see as an app through Retail Link. So Supplier One, same login as Retail Link there, and you can see quickly get to reports on your quality score, as well as you can generate bulk reports or just item by item to see what those suggestions are to improve. So all the feedback you would get on third-party marketplace for what you need to do, whether it's attributes, title, images, and resolutions, you'll get all those elements and the suggestions, even length of words and those kind of things being used to get that score up.
Very cool. And sticking on another question on this related to this topic, I think this is actually the reverse. We talked about 1P sellers, using third-party accounts for assortment expansion or kind of the laboratory nursery effect, right? Maybe try to show velocity in 3P, right, to get the merchant excited, right, to get the meeting. This question is, what's the best way to become a 1P seller, right? Is there a way to obtain category velocity benchmarks so that you're able to take that case to the retail buyer? Who wants to grab that?
I'm going to use one that Kraft pulled. They brought a new product launch out within 15 days, and they launched it on Amazon. And then what they did, it was a masterful play. So they launched it on Amazon first. Then they used the sales metrics, and it was ketchup like with ranch. So just with marketplace forces, with that going on, they launched it in a blink. They used the sales data off Amazon to go back with the buyer to be able to take and get placement. I got goosebumps just reading that in underneath the hood of what that is. We need to get out of the box, and when we need to get in front of buyers, and the sales teams do, we can't be afraid not to be able to take and leverage that kind of thinking that, you know what, launch it, take that early launch, take that data and go back. And if you're a 3P, use it at the table. and to be able to take and use the metrics and all of the back end data that you have from Amazon or from another channel, whether it's D2C, to be able to take and get the seat at the table.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that, other two guys? Anything to add? I mean, I think there's some other variations of it, right? Which is you go to a trade show, Walmart buyers go to the big trade shows. They were at Expo West, they're at the home show. It's like they're constantly searching for great product, right? And to keep the assortment fresh for sure. And so, I could say when we were at Walmart, the heart of this question is like, how do I get the meeting, with the merchant? I think if you're doing really well as a third party seller, even if it's just one item, then the chances are much, much greater that you're already going to be working with the Walmart Marketplace account team, right? That category team. And I found, that to be the most effective way, to sort of expand that relationship because, at least when I was there differently than at Amazon, the Walmart 1P and 3P teams collaborate and they have a combined assortment strategy for the customer. And so, there's not that firewall like there was at Amazon, and there's no competition between the platforms. So it's absolutely, within the realm of what's possible. But I know that when I was there, it's like, make your story in 3P. And then, yeah, if it makes sense for Walmart to entertain the idea of, transferring to a retail relationship where they're going to assume more risk, right? And buy it wholesale and house, all the better. But yeah, those category teams can be really effective. Anything to add on that before we take?
Yeah, to Dan's, like, kind of carry up Dan's point a little bit, right? Like using strategic, like, okay, whether it's selling on Amazon or your own brand.com website or going in as a 3P and having some success there and then working that unilaterally, right? Like to get to the 1P buyer. But it's really with any product, right? Any brand, it's crafting that story, it's crafting that narrative, and then showing Walmart's buyers why they should lean into your product and why that should become a 1P relationship. And it's what we specialize in all day long in Fusion, but like it's leaning into that opportunity to really expand that relationship because of the story that you've crafted in other avenues, right? Like take that narrative, what stands you apart, right? Like the funny thing is you bring up ranch or whatever they're calling it, and that's essentially fry sauce. We've been selling that in Utah for 50 years, 60 years. But but like it's figuring out, okay, what's the differentiator, and then what's the avenue to go play with that differentiator, and how do we craft that narrative? And then you make it so that the 1P buyer has to say, yeah, like this makes sense. Like, let's do it, right? Because you've proven it in other avenues, whether it's as a 3P seller and on Amazon, on your own website. Also, I would contend that social media plays a big part in this too. What's your influencer strategy? What's your social play, right? Like, how are you creating buzz around that product? And that goes into part of that narrative in crafting that. Because now more and more buyers are looking at, okay, like, right, you've sold this many units, but how do people hear about you, right? Like they want to know how they're finding out about you.
Absolutely. Quick time check. Matt Pfeiffer, are we going to end at the hour or go over?
100% your call, sir.
Okay, we do have 3 and counting other questions, so we'll try to get as much of this into the last 3 minutes, and then I think let's keep going as long as we've got questions, guys. It's great questions coming in. These are all 3 a little bit different. So, question about a digital only, a .com only product, only one SKU, and it's seasonal, right? Quick in and out. So, best practices for winning in that very short moment of time with like one unit only. Anybody, open it up.
I'll grab that one.
Oh, so go ahead, Dan.
Take what Jeremy just said with with social media. Take user-generated content from Walmart shoppers during that seasonal period and use it across the marketing stack. And to really be able to take in and let the shopper tell the story, bring that voice of the shopper forward. You got the window, and just across the shopper marketing tactics rather than just brand-centric messaging, put a different set of lens on. Let the shopper tell your story. If it is back to school, get a voice of the mom on and tell just the hecticness around back to school, the product did this and this and this. Once again, I think that user-generated content that is planned and just not brand-centric content, but user-generated content is one of the secrets in the sauce to be able to take and get on the planned shopping list during a short, focused window.
Ryan?
Yeah, there's three quick things come to mind. One would be make sure in your strategy, or a recommended portion of the strategy to consider would be offsite traffic to drive to those listings to get that fast start. That's going to impact both your organic ranking and your PPC if you're going to commit to retail media spend, which would probably be a part of the play here to grow in relevance. Your traffic, you need the visits to your listings and the conversions, those things to feed relevancy signals to that algorithm. Those relevancy signals are what gain your organic ranking, but also, and very importantly, in your PPC efficiency, your ad spend efficiency on sponsored products on that site. There is a high relevancy correlation to what the algorithm sees your product, your PDP related to in keywords, and how efficient your ad spend is going to be. So if you're competing in a highly competitive seasonal area where everybody's going to be ramping up in that area, a mix of offsite traffic that starts feeding the relevancy signals to the organic algorithm, as well as to make your PPC spend efficient and actually within striking distance, is probably key. In that regard. If it's on the 3P marketplace, I don't know if we're talking 1P, 3P here, 3P marketplace, leveraging things like Flash Picks or Flash Picks is the program, those types of discount driven programs. So if a pricing strategy allows, that's where you're going to access additional volume that may not just be right out of the gate, high search intent for your particular product. But if they're looking for a deal, a discount, there's a lot of volume coming off those flash deal sites, flash pick sites, those kind of things as well are things to consider.
I just wanted
one thing to kind of carry off of Ryan's there is with a seasonal product is create some buildup. So your ad spend may be expensive during the time of that seasonal product. You can run ads months before to gather email addresses, build up your email list. And then when that product drops on Walmart.com, then send out emails that drive to your Walmart.com listing. That way you can run some ad spend in times that are less expensive, start to gather some email addresses, and then you have a larger email database that you can then drop when you launch that product. And that's a way to kind of, it's you own the list in the sense of the email, right? But there is a bit of the delay from when you run the ads to when you drop the email, but it can be a less expensive play to create a greater ROI.
My answer to that question was going to be find a way to just bend the laws of space-time or slow down the clock, but good thing we have these three guys here, right? I don't know what season you're in, but I hope that was helpful. We've got a couple more. I just want to tell our panelists to start thinking about maybe a quick tip you want to send out the audience with. We've still got a pretty healthy amount of people that decided to stick with us over the top of the hour, so thank you. So let's talk about this is a question about category, right? Somebody only has one product. Maybe they don't think they can get attention from Walmart, but Walmart loves the category they're in. Maybe, are you guys seeing anything effective in terms of partnering up, right, with other brands in a certain category? And I think maybe the heart of the question is maybe joint deals or just, showing up together in ads or something where maybe one brand and another brand have this kind of affinity relationship where it just gets both of them, more noticed. Or maybe it's a small brand striking up an affinity with a larger brand, and Walmart cares about it because it's a category play, right? Any thoughts on that, guys? Interesting question.
I think collaborations could be powerful in that space, right? So if you have a product in a category that another brand that you have a relationship with, or that you want to have a relationship with, doesn't sell that product, and you feel like you can go in and get a collaboration with them, you could co-brand a product, you could come into that space, right? Like, so looking at co-branding collaborations could be advantageous. The other thing to look at is really like, are there influencers that maybe they have used, like another partner brand in that category, that you could go use to help tell that story with some user-generated content, some influencer content. Those are a couple avenues that you could look at to really bring some awareness around that. But also, if you have a story, if you have a brand or a product that has a story that's unique, Walmart will lean into that. We've got a client that has one product on Walmart shelves in the fishing category because it's unique, it's different, and it's different than what else is out there. And so Walmart will lean into that if there's a narrative, if there's a story to tell, and it makes sense.
The thought that comes to mind, I'm going to steal this. This is something that Paras Shah over at Georgia Pacific talked about as it not directly correlated to this, but I think it applies, is that kind of collaboration deal. If there's a smaller retailer or somewhere else, so, if you're going to ask a large retailer like a Walmart to run an experiment, one way to potentially ask them is if you have pre-existing data of, we ran this experiment at a smaller scale at a smaller retailer. So, if you think about who do you correlate with, how does that look? What does that add to average order value, average basket size when someone does this and does this? Do we have some indicators that would make sense at the category level for that merchant? And you take a test set that's less expensive, less risk. You do it at a smaller play for a period of time, and then you bring that data to say, this is why we think this might make sense here. Might be a compelling way to do it. The second thought I have is one element in that collaboration that this is purely anecdotal, so I can't point to this happening, but this is a play on Amazon sometimes. Is Walmart does on the .com side, on the website, does have a carousel or area where it's frequently bought together type things. People also considered. And so one of the potential fruits of partnership could be if you're doing offsite promos together of saying, get these two items at the same time, we'll give a rebate, whatever it may be. I don't know the mechanics on that side, how you would set it up. But if you start showing and demonstrably showing this is now showing up as frequently considered together, we're getting average basket size of orders for OPD, whatever it is, growing because of this, that's great data to be looking for and presenting back.
Awesome. Last call for question, guys. Anybody has any burning question that you haven't dropped in the chat? I think we've covered most of them. There's one anonymous one, which is pretty specific and tactical about just needing some help in Seller Center, right? And would suggest you to reach out to Ryan or Dan or Jeremy through LinkedIn. I know they'd be happy to just get into the weeds for 5 minutes with you. Ryan will probably just do a screen share and not even charge you for it, or Dan or Jeremy. So yeah, we'll give you guys 1 second. Housekeeping note as well. I know that our panelists dropped a few links in the chat with some helpful resources. So before you guys sign off, just do a quick scan of that chat and just open those up in your browser so you can refer to them later. So with that, I will keep watching the chat, and any last minute questions that come in will go there, but we will just put it back to our panelists. If you guys just want to do a quick send out, something that's exciting you or a tip that you want everybody to go do, anything you want to leave them with. And let's start with Jeremy.
My biggest tip would just be optimize your PDP, right? Like make sure that you're leaning into your brand story, lean into your narrative, make sure you're checking all of the boxes. Go through the strategy guides, right? The brand guide or the style guide for Walmart. Make sure it's on brand with everything else you're doing, and just lean into the content and story as much as you can on your PDPs so that you can be found, but also you're going to convert better, you're going to sell better, and optimize your reviews, right? Like if you're not syndicating, look at an option to syndicate, because hopefully you have lots of reviews on your own .com and you can syndicate those over. Because according to Walmart, you're 52% more likely to sell a product when you have more than 10 reviews. So reviews are important. So just optimize that PDP as best you can. Got great quality images. Don't make them grainy. Don't make them low res, right? Like just lean into making sure that your product page looks great. And the other key is you got to do it different than you do on your. You can't just copy your Amazon listing over to Walmart because they're different. Your title is got to be shorter on Walmart.com than it is on Amazon. You can't play that for SEO like you can on Amazon as much, right? But look at all of those things, go through the steps, and make sure that PDP just screams your product, your brand, and does it in a really good way.
Awesome.
I saw within the last week and a half just the sobering metric across consumer product companies, and it came from a major study that Bain did. Catch this one. 76% of consumer product growth in the last 12 months came from pricing. So increasing your pricing. That frightens me to death in this conversation we're having. The goal of the conversation is about scaling at Walmart. And I'll tell you what, if that's where growth is coming from, by pricing, where 76% of consumer product growth came from pricing. I'm going to take what Jeremy said. We need to bring the shopper back into the middle of the story. Stratably is an e-commerce company out there that goes across different retailers and just great data. And I'm going to steal something that Russ from Stratably had and that he brought forward. 50% of incremental sales growth is coming from e-commerce. We say, okay, so here's where the disconnect is. 76% of consumer product growth is coming from a price increase, and 50% of incremental sales growth is coming from e-commerce. You have a big gap between the pricing and the shopper. And you know what's in the middle of that? It is a broken strategy and status quo. I'm just being honest. Is status quo and not knowing what to do to be able to take and put together, because the shopper is in a very, very different place than where the consumer product companies are. And we got to close that gap. My biggest suggestion is bring the voice of the shopper back up into the PDP. And whatever that looks like, get out of the box within the guidelines. And whenever you can take and let the Walmart shopper tell your story, that's how Walmart's grown. They've grown from the shopper back, and empower the shopper to make a better purchase decision faster across every omnichannel part that you can possibly do. And relook at just brand-centric messaging. Harness the voice of the Walmart shopper. That's where the money is. That's where you scale.
Awesome. And Ryan, I'm going to bias your remarks by saying we haven't talked about AI on this session, but of course, Walmart had a lot to say about AI and automation, right, in their earnings report. I specialize in helping retailers, start to implement AI solutions across lines of business now with my company, Mass Commerce. Ryan's been pretty early. I think, Ryan might have sent me a spreadsheet at some point, when ChatGPT was getting early, but we're landing the plane here on basically fundamentals, and it lives or dies at that PDP. To Dan's voice comments, is it in the voice of the shopper? Is it compelling? To Jeremy, it's like there's so many ingredients to that. Ryan, again, you feel free to say whatever you want, but I think there's all these great tools out there, right, to help Amazon sellers, scale quickly and just, not have to manually recreate listings or keep images up to date. Like, I'd love if you could color up that and then just leave any other tips you have.
Yeah, I think that's, for a lot of companies, they're thinking about how do we do this at scale, and how do we, we may have a few SKUs or we may have 1,000 SKUs, whatever it may be. And so, whether it's just speed of the market and trying to keep up with speed of the market with a small SKU count, and how do we test and iterate quickly of what truly our competitors are doing, or what our shoppers are saying in reviews with that social proof, what are we pulling out in sentiment, and how do we express that back in the voice of the shopper through the PDP and copy or imagery. There are advancing tools. There's as simple as taking, downloading reviews from somewhere, throwing them into ChatGPT, and with ChatGPT GPT 4.0 now, with sentiment analysis, ask it, what are the sentiments? What is the common phrase in the voice of the customer? Give me 5 bullet points, or give me, and drop in there real simply, what are the style guides for this product type from Walmart that in general, and give it a few iterations and say, just give me your best take at this, and experiment. And test one variable at a time and see what's going on there. That's a great way to do it, and it doesn't take adoption of bigger tools. Other ones like Visit and all these others that are really interesting to see how they're using AI to give you basically a survey of the customer without having to go to live customers all the time, but using their data to say what are the hot spots on those images, what actually converts. Those are great things to be testing out as well. So yeah, iteration and testing is going to be more and more the status quo, because people, you don't have to be a category manager anymore to understand fully how do I analyze data in a way that's going to directly drive to my content team or whoever it is. You can be a one-person content team and analyst at the same time. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves. I think things are going to just pick up in pace. The last tip I'd give was not using AI per se, but thinking through one of the changes that's been a slower shift. But I see a lot of people maybe missing is if 60 to 80% of shoppers are using mobile or app. Seth Dallaire did a report with the CPG guys talking about Walmart Connect's report on how many of the shoppers in the grocery aisle were using the app at the time. This was 2 years ago, maybe longer. I think it was something about 60 to 80% of those shoppers were using the app in Walmart 3 to 4 times, checking reviews, checking price, finding it in the aisle, those things. And so the question for the PDP and when you're optimizing, are you optimizing only for desktop when you design? Or are you opening up the app and the mobile experience and saying, how does image stack work for mobile? What additional icons are showing up in the app? So the zoom, the play button, all those things are white circles that show up on the right side of your images. If you have text laying under that section on your PDP, it's not being seen by 60 to 80% of those who are going to your listing. And so look through it. Is the text on your product and your PDP legible at that size quickly? Do you have to do a little bit of formatting to make sure it is legible, specifically thinking through the mobile lens? And is it also presentable to the desktop shopper? The final thing I think is just thinking a level deeper. A lot of this increase for 1P suppliers and increase in e-commerce has been for OPD. And so when you think about, it's not just the first click you're optimizing for. Who is the picker at Walmart picking that product? And what imagery do they have to go off of? Because they're on a clock and they're trying to fill that basket for you. If your imagery is not up to par and updated in Item 360, those things, and on your PDP, how long are they going to search on the physical aisle before they move to substitute? And you've lost to a competitor for adding to that cart. So be thinking through, how do I make it as seamless and easy on the digital side? Because that is directly correlating to your physical shelf.
I just translated OPD. You're showing your age with that reference, but yeah, BOPUS, buy pick up in store. Great. Awesome. This has been awesome. Thank you guys, our experts. And thank you so many of you for hanging on over the hour. If there were any questions you wanted to ask that you weren't able to, I'm sure any of our 3 experts here will field them, or you can always reach out to Matt Pfeiffer as well. I just want to personally say, how much fun it is to sort of be on the outside now and just be able to continue to learn about the great things happening at Walmart from experts who are still in it every day. And as I said before, I think you were all better at it than I was even when I was in the house. So Matt Pfeiffer, let's kick it back to you and any announcements you have. But thank you again, guys. And thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks to the panel. Thanks to the folks that have joined live. Just a couple of housekeeping issues. One of the things that's amazed me in my 25 years associated with Walmart is just how open and willing people like our esteemed panel are to share and just for the sake of community building, relationship development, and so forth. So, Matthew mentioned a little bit ago, if you've got questions, hit these guys on LinkedIn. I'm sure they'd be delighted to help you. This has been recorded. It'll be available on our YouTube channel and on our website. We've got 3,000 plus views of the Ask Anything event that we did just a couple of weeks ago. So we encourage you to check it out there if you want to reference the information. And most importantly, give us some feedback. We intend to do a lot more of these in the future. So if there's anything you'd like us to do differently, please let us know. But thank you all so much for joining us. Look forward to seeing you all again soon.